welcome back. This is Uncle Quiche here with y'all. It's been a while, been kind of busy. I think the Flying Spaghetti Monster was not well recorded, so I did not get good documentation of pulling the harness and then shipping it off to get merged. But today, good news, we are actually going to be receiving the harness within the next week or so because it's completed and done merging. So that means I need to get my butt in action because I haven't made too much more forward progress on getting the wagon pulled apart. But let me get you up to speed on what I have done. So you're going to notice the last couple times we were struggling to get the front harness out. So the front harness, the fuse box, all of the components for this fuse box, everything is officially out, and that was a lot of what was shipped off to get merged. Basically, everything that goes from the dash to all of the front components, so cables for the transmission, for the ABS system, for the steering components, for the cooling system, for the front lights, the fog lights. All of those harnesses needed to get merged, and once they were combined, they're able to get basically merged with what's in the dash, and then what goes back to the fuel pump also gets merged so that we can run the WRX fuel pump, even though we are going to use the old ABS system. And because this is still relatively similar, so it uses the direct cable drivetrain, we were able to get all the wiring done, and so we're on to the next process. And the next process here essentially is getting all the rest of the drivetrain components off. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to try to reuse these axles. I have to get the control arms off. While I was away, both front, right, and left hubs are out. The steering components are separated. There's definitely wear and tear. I have to get the sway bars disconnected from the control arm, get the control arm undone. I still need a pin tool to get the axles off. And then really it's going to be a question of, do I replace the axles altogether or do I rebuild them? I don't think they're in that bad of condition, other than the fact that the boots are torn and the grease is gone. But I think once those components are kind of rebuilt and refreshed, they'll be decent enough to throw in and run. And so, I'm trying to kind of repair and replace stuff more simply if I can help it. Then we've got the subframe. So subframe is 2 bolts here, and then I believe it's another big bolt there. So one there, and that should take this subframe off. So that's this component here, which has the steering rack inside connected to your steering column. The coupling for the column is going to change because the WRX rack is going to go into the new car. However, the steering column length and shape is a little different. and the splines that connect the column here. The column here to the drive shaft, or sorry, steering rack to the column. That connection, so basically from here down to here, so here to here, they use different splines. So we call kind of this pairing area the splines. I already have the correct coupling, so I'm not all too worried about that. The transmission for this car, the 5-speed, is still hooked up to the dog bone, so when I remove all of this, this should stay in place. And then the U-frame here, so the U-frame goes all the way here, all the way back underneath the control arms. I don't think I need to remove it. It's a structural integrity thing that doesn't really support any of the other components, but it is here to provide rigidity, so I'm going to try and leave it if I can. That way I can get all the other parts off and not really worry about it. Back there, you're going to see this curved piece right there. So that's actually supporting the transmission there. I do not need that, so I'm hoping to keep that in place and then be able to take the control arms off. The tie rods are already undone. Tie rods are basically what connects to the bellows of the steering rack and come out onto your hub. So it's separate, so the axle connects your transmission to the hub, to the center of the hub. So now you have a rotating point on a fixed platform, and then you have your steering component into a separate point on the hub, so that when you turn, this pulls in and out, the hub will turn independent of the axle, so it doesn't have to be a rotating component, just one that's able to provide force to turn the wheels. Again, this seems fine on my end. I don't know. I think I can reuse, because I believe the ABS sensors are the same in the old car's hubs compared to the new ones, so I think I can leave that the same. Brake components, I'm going to have to send everything off to get cleaned and hopefully powder coated. If the control arms are in decent shape, I don't really intend on replacing them. I will do like the rubbers on everything so that, you know, that end is pretty refreshed. But otherwise, everything's going to go get sandblasted and hopefully powder coated to a gold color, because the complement color, silver and gold, so, or as my wife likes to remind me, the whole thing is a shade of gold, which I disagree with, but you know, she's the boss. But yeah, I'm gonna have it powder color coated the same color, and then I'm also going to do I think the intake, the headers rather, and then I don't know if I want to color any component of the case itself. But first things first, it's got to get sent off. Well, deconstructed and sent off. But really, I don't care about any of this until this car and all the parts I need from it are done. Because after that point, I can send it off to a recycler and they can take care of what they want to do. The transmission alone, you know, is in good shape. Running, it's got the transmission, it's got the oh my god, my brain is not braining today. It's got the rear diff, and then it's got the drive shaft. So all three of those components, usually sold together, are like $1,000. I don't feel like going through the process of selling it to someone. So if a dismantler is willing to do so and they want the car. There's plenty of good parts on here. The rubber's good, the scoop's good, the doors are relatively straight. There's some dents in them. The door cards are actually in really good shape. I actually really wish I could fit this into the new car, but none of this stuff fits. I've still got all of the dash interior cubby components, all in really good shape. The glass is great. The rear quarters are great. I think the tail lights are not in the best of shape. But even still, it's not bad. The hatch is great. It looks like a bigger wing. I do not remember my brother's wagon having this massive, this massive of a rear wing. I've always preferred the middle wing and top wing combo that the Gen 1s have, which is probably the main reason why I ended up with these ones instead of the second gen Impreza. But again, those are all thoughts for another time. At this point, the dash harness remains in the car. I chose not to take it out of this one because it's a manual harness, and I think a manual harness deserves to go into a manual car. However, I think I'm going to try and hold on to some of these components, like the fog light fuse and some of these modules for sound, because I'm going to try and reuse the underseat sub. And then the rear seats, I'm going to see if I can get them to come out and go into the other car. Apparently you can. It's just not the cleanest of fits, but I don't know. We'll give it a shot, see what happens. Otherwise, the interior of this car is pretty solid. The carpet's still good. I just took it out because I needed to get to all the wiring below. All the dash components are still there. That's the actual dash over there. So, as you can see, everything's kind of full. The only thing I do want to steal is the steering wheel, because it's actually really, really, really nice. It's so much smaller than what comes factory on these cars, on the Gen 1s rather, so I think it would make it a nicer driving experience. And so having this with the slightly faster ratio of the rack is just going to make this car a lot more fun. I drove it around for a little bit yesterday because the battery had died and I needed to get it smogged. It passed, so happily I'm gonna go register a car that passed smog, and I'll keep it, all good for now. But realistically, especially because I spent the last few weeks fighting the rear discs coming off. As you can see by the rust here, it had seized onto the hub here, and I've spent some time trying to kind of grind down the surface there. I will probably end up replacing it with probably just slotted discs. And then obviously these calipers look just like all the other calipers on this car. I would really prefer to rebuild them. So the idea at this point is the rear subframe I already have for the automatic transmission. The automatic transmission I already have with the transmission mount. The dog bone, I'm gonna probably just reuse the one in the car already, and then Basically, I'm going to stage everything here and do a dry fit. And then once the dry fit is done, I will kind of start going about cleaning things up and getting them repainted or refreshed and ready to go back on. Because, like, all this surface rust is actually quite minor. I don't see any dings, dents, scratches that, like, have me feeling like this is, a bad idea at this point. Obviously, I'm delusional enough to where I believe that all of this, which is theoretically all just a bad idea, is not a bad idea. So, I'm going to let myself live with those delusions here. um, and then in the meantime, I got some brake cleaner. I'm going to try to set up a fan so that I don't end up high as a kite on brake cleaning fluid as I spray it in here and try and clean things up. Obviously, the car is immobile, and I can't really get a hose or pressure washer in here to like appropriately clean this thing. And I really, really, really wish I could, because as you can see, with every blow of the hammer, I'm just getting more stuff out. So really, the cleaning's going to happen once everything's out. This side actually was the harder of the two to get things out of. I've had the front right done for a while here. The front left actually came apart really quickly. However, my axle is pretty cooked, so I don't know if rebuilding is the right thing to do. This is going to be a forums and internet question. Unfortunately, with the death of Nasiak, a lot of the resources and information that used to be out there just doesn't seem to be. So I have to figure out what to do here. As I'm looking at this, something seems off. And then obviously there's a bit of rust here. So I have to figure out, after all this gets cleaned up and cleaned out, how much of it can come out and how much of it is willing to come out. And then, but we're making progress, rear side actually came out much easier. As you can see here, there's a lot less rust. But the calipers are just as ugly. And so, it'll take a little bit to get everything out and cleaned up. Here's my very fancy and well thought out, brake fluid catch device. It's actually worked really well. Next order of business, though, front and back, getting all these components off so that I can get the handbrake or e-brake cable free. And then we'll go from there. What I am going to do, though, because I think it would be kind of cool to see, is I'm going to see if I can set the tripod up on that side, and I'm going to pull the e-brake, and that way we can kind of watch the mechanism do its thing before I take it apart. But a quick explanation of how all this works. There's springs. It's spring loaded. Here at the top you can see two of them. Here at the bottom you should be able to see one more. You can also see in the middle there's the little adjustment thing. So if the pads are touching too much, these are the shoes or pads for the e-brake. Then you can always adjust it further out or in to be able to jump in. And then lastly, right here, Let's focus. And on the other side here, there are these little pins with springs on them, and that's what holds this in place and kind of allows it to have a center pivot point. And then obviously you have the axle, the hub, the dust shield, all of which I'm going to try and reuse. And so every corner has its own of what's working and what's not. And then we'll go from there. So let's put you on the tripod. All right. And let's see. Decision making on my part. Apologies. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So there we are. All right, let's go pull the e-brake and see what happens. I heard it, and it looked like it pulled. There was not a lot of resistance, which I would assume would be because there's nothing pushing against it. But nicely moving, and get it all cleaned up. Just gonna grab a glove real quick here. 2 gloves because that's what landed in my hand. Genuinely, I like working without gloves. I think a lot of a lot of people would frown upon that, and I probably should frown upon myself, but you know. Wow. So somebody's gone and done this before, because normally it's not blue. Awesome. Well, as you can see, it dries very quickly right in front of our eyes. But that pretty much took care of a lot of the grime that was sitting there. I've heard of, but I'm happy to be proven wrong in this situation. Let's go do the other side. I think I've said it before, but I'm just trying to do this on. That's how you do things and feel good about them, right? You set a budget, you set an idea of what it's gonna take, and you just work hard and hope that things fall into place. And you know, I'm still in the here's hoping phase of things, and we'll see what happens. Alright, I'm gonna go step away for a second, because if you breathe this stuff in for too long, then Apparently you go loopy. And as much as I like being loopy, I don't want to be loopy. Okay, here we are back to the front. The nice clean open air. There is a breeze, so I think we're in good shape. I will run the fan later. Question though. Opinions on the hood scoop, right? Some people really dig this hood scoop, and some people really want to see the Impreza hood scoop. And so, I don't think they're that far off in size from one another. I think it's the STI one that's actually massive. So if anyone has an opinion on swapping hood scoops, let me know, because I'm curious. And then as a couple side notes, so you're aware, I do actually try and read through everyone's comments and stuff. Just, this is my first time. People know a lot more than me, but also it feels like I'm not doing it all by myself. If other people chime in and express themselves and let me know how they feel about certain things as they happen. I have some pretty big guilt over the fact that I took apart the, or rather that I had to clip the airbag clip for the dash on the passenger side. The wires are still good. I'm sure you can, re-put one in there, but my goal is to leave things as original as possible, and unfortunately it just wasn't possible with how stuck that piece of hardware was. So now we're here. I am looking for my pliers, just found them. Because I have two sets. I have a needle, both are needle nose, I would say, but one of them does not have any teeth, so it's a little bit harder to grip stuff. So I'm gonna go back to the basics here, and here they are. So these, if you can see, they're pretty smooth, no teeth. These you can see pretty easily that it does have teeth, so it makes gripping on to stuff like this a lot easier. And so what I'm going to try to do here, there's actually two ways I could do this. So I could try to rotate this pin and get it to spin. But first, I actually have to undo the spring at the bottom here. There's one spring. Here's the other. Now we've got this little plate here that helps